This is my 22-year-old Miata that I bought last year, and in that time I've learned a lot about doing maintenance on these cars. So today I'm going to share my top 5 list of maintenance items that you should address when you buy one of these old Miatas. And this list is going to be ordered from most deadly to least deadly, as in what is the most crucial thing to take care of first. And that would be your brakes. If you just bought an old car, the first thing you want to do is check how much life is left in your brakes. You want to make sure the brake rotors and pads have enough life left, and that the calipers and lines are not leaking any fluid anywhere. Because you might not know the full history of this car and how it was taken care of or used, and you probably want to be confident that the car can stop safely every time. So the second thing to check is your radiator. Your radiator. And what you're basically checking for is to see if your black plastic radiator has started like browning or almost turning green. And the radiator in my sister's Subaru is actually a great example of a radiator that's pretty much on its way out. And that's because when you're buying a 20 to 30-year-old car, if the radiator hasn't already been changed out, it's probably very close to the end of its life. And if a radiator blows, it can leave you stranded. Or if you don't notice your radiator exploding in your engine bay and you keep driving, you can risk overheating your car and then permanently damaging the engine. And it's a relatively cheap fix to do. So that's an extremely important thing to check on an old car. The third thing you want to think about is changing every single fluid and oil in your car. There's normal stuff that is always changed, like engine oil, but if you're buying a car used, you might not know when that was last done, and oil is relatively cheap, so it doesn't hurt to change it out. But the main thing is transmission and differential fluid. That stuff has probably never been changed out. And if you're trying to really keep an old car alive, it doesn't hurt to put new fluid in those so that they can keep going as long as possible. The fourth thing to look out for, which arguably is probably way more important than number 3, is the timing belt. You want to make sure that the timing belt service isn't overdue, because if that breaks, it'll leave you stranded. However, it's not that common, at least that I've heard of, but if it is really old and hasn't been changed, then it does become a safety issue in terms of leaving you stranded. And then finally, you should inspect and probably replace your spark plugs and spark plug wires. Like all the other stuff on this list, if the car is 20, 30 years old, there's always a really good chance that the spark plugs and wires themselves haven't been changed in 20, 30 years and could start to cause performance issues down the line. And it's a really easy DIY and cheap replacement, so it's worth just taking care of that to refresh your car and make sure you don't have any issues in the future. And one bonus maintenance item to take care of is doing a shifter rebuild on these cars. It's actually the very first thing I did and one of the easiest things you can do, and it can especially make a difference if that plastic bushing is completely disintegrated and the shifter is floppy like mine was when I got it. So with 1 hour of work, you can fix that floppy shifter and you can eliminate any risk of just going into the wrong gear. So that's my top list of maintenance items to address when you buy your Miata. But honestly, all of that kind of applies to any old car you buy. And that's a list that I wish I had in hand when I first got this car, because I didn't know anything about cars and this has been my learning car. And most of those items are pretty easy to do yourself and a great way to get into learning about your car when you have no experience. So I hope that's been helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-da!